Kim Anderson into the studio, joining us for our continuous coverage on Hurricane Nate.
Chris, thank you so much. We're taking over, and you've been listening to Darwin and Andrew, who've been telling you a lot of closures and different things that are going on in the area as this hurricane gets ready to barrel on shore.
Yeah, we started out early this morning with a special 2-hour newscast from 7 until 9 o'clock, and then a special hour at noon as well. And now, as you have heard and probably have seen by now, we are going to go wall to wall. We are going to go full stop. We are thinking that this is obviously a very, very important thing to do at this point. We are out of programming. We are going to stay with you until Nate comes ashore and until the threat is over. And that's something that we are very committed to do here at NBC 15 News.
And all along the Gulf Coast, we've got Reporter Station keeping you updated. Let's go right now to NBC 15's James Gordon, who is in Gulf Shores, where, James, you see that water is just starting to get a little rough there.
Well, Kim and Greg, yes, the winds are kicking up here. And we've pretty much brought our cameras up to this wall over here because the winds are pretty strong, and we also see a huge band of rain on the horizon this way, which means, as you can see as I step out here, the wind does pick up. We're already, we're feeling, I think Jake mentioned earlier, probably a close to 25, 35 mile an hour wind. So that is something we're feeling here. It has kicked up throughout the day. And of course, a lot of decisions have been made here in the Gulf Shores, Orange Beach area based on the storm surge being a lot greater than it was forecast yesterday. 3 to 5 foot waves surge yesterday, now possibly between 8 and 9. So folks here are under an evacuation order just west on the West Beach, just west of the Little Lagoon Pass. Let me show you real quick over here. We've got some canopies that they've left. The city has left those up here. So I believe they're thinking these things are going to make it. Perhaps maybe this evening they'll take them down. But right now with the wind that we have, it looks like they're withstanding the force. Of course, we're expecting a lot stronger winds this evening. The beaches are pretty much clear. Everybody has been asked to leave the beaches. There are barricades here at the public beach parking lot, giving folks the signal not to park or not to be here. And there is a voluntary curfew for most of the county, but here in Gulf Shores, it's a mandatory curfew beginning at 8 o'clock tonight. You need to be off the roads in the Gulf Shores, Orange Beach area beginning at 8 o'clock. And throughout Baldwin County, the sheriff is asking that folks please stay off the roads after that hour as well, to allow emergency vehicles and others and police officers to patrol the streets and make sure everything is in order. And again, I think as we've mentioned before, there is a shelter that's opened. It opened up at 1 o'clock this afternoon at the Robertsdale Coliseum. The Baldwin County Commission made that decision around noon today based on the fact that they knew that folks were going to be evacuating or leaving the area, and they wanted to make sure they had a place to stay. Greg and Kim.
All right, James, thanks very much. James Gordon live down there at Orange Beach and Gulf Shores area. As we were coming in today, and we've been telling people to stay at home the best you can, we saw those the first little bands of this storm coming in, and about 2:30 the first raindrops over on the eastern shore, the northern part of Baldwin County, and the winds whipped up. We saw those bands come in, and a lot of rain on the causeway, a lot of rain on the bayway, but those still are open at this time.
Yeah, I was coming in through 65 south, heading this way through the Saraland area, and the rain was coming down real heavy. It was actually blinding rain at that time coming through this way. James was down on Gulf Shores looking at that picture now. We want to remind people that Mayor Robert Kraft down there in Gulf Shores has issued an evacuation order for anyone, all properties along West Beach Boulevard that's located west of Little Lagoon Pass, Lee Calloway Bridge, and anyone who lives the West Beach area between West 8th Street and Little Lagoon Pass and Lee Calloway Bridge.
All right, that's a shot of Gulf Shores right there on the right-hand side of your screen. Behind us is our live beach cam from Gulf Shores as well. And right now, believe it or not, there are people out in that surf. Not a good idea. Double red flags are out right now. It is against the law to be in the water right now, and for good reason. And I think the big thing that we heard, Kim, that Jake and Chris were talking about is this storm continues to speed up. Originally, it was going to be a late to mid-morning. Then it became a right after midnight storm. Now it looks like it could get here before midnight, between 10 and midnight. So things have rapidly sped up as far as when the storm is going to hit. So you're going to have to speed up your clock. If you were planning on doing some things, do it more quickly, because this storm is getting here a lot more quickly
It's
than we
sped up.
originally thought.
Exactly, and it gained
Yeah.
strength. You got a lot of stores that were closing down too early today, who are closed down. So get out early. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey has said from the time that we first knew this storm was going to come our way, she declared a state of emergency in preparation for this storm coming.
Yeah, this is what she had to say just a couple of hours ago from Montgomery.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. You know, Saturday's important days in Alabama, because this is college football season, and we are very much interested, and we are a college football state. So most Alabamians, or many Alabamians, are focused on their favorite teams today. And while we know that football is important and we wish our teams well, today our focus must shift, and it must be on the weather and our condition as we get prepared for this hurricane that's coming our way. Earlier today, I signed a request for presidential emergency declaration. This will be sure that federal assistance is available to us in this for emergency response. I have again been in contact with FEMA Director Brock Long and the White House, and they've assured me that the federal government will give us every assistance possible. We also remain very much in constant contact and communication with our local officials, both elected and EMA and law enforcement in our coastal counties. And now we expect that Nate will make landfall around midnight somewhere along the Alabama-Mississippi line as a Category 2 hurricane. Areas along this coast area are likely to already start feeling the effects of the storm, but our team is in place and ready to provide whatever assistance is needed. Many of our inland counties also under storm watch warnings or watches and flash flood watches. This threat is for real in Alabama. We expect a landfall near the Alabama-Mississippi line with the heaviest impacts along US 90's Causeway, Dauphin Island, Fort Morgan, Biola Battery, Orange Beach, and Gulf Shores. Inland areas will also be impacted with heavy winds and rain. This morning, I ordered the Emergency Operations Center at EMA to a level 1 beginning at noon today. Alabamians must remain vigilant and ready to withstand whatever comes. So before the storm arrives, please secure your outdoor belongings, and those near the coast or in low-lying areas should plan to go to higher ground and do it immediately. It's imperative that you decide now how and what you're going to do as you respond to this storm. Whatever preparations you are making, let me encourage you to do it now and finish before sundown tonight.
All right, that was Governor Kay Ivey with an update at 2 o'clock. And as she was talking, she said that's a possibility of a Category 2 storm coming ashore. That was before the 4 o'clock update. And as our meteorologist just said, it is looking like a Category 1, which is better. Still not great, obviously.
No, because these storms are still dangerous. They can still be deadly, as we saw as it's coming through certain countries. So be careful, stay inside, take all the precautions that you need to take. Look at this video. This right here is just pretty amazing here.
This is a guy that's waterboarding there on the beach, skimboarding, and then look up behind him. Oh, there's a water spout. That's a pretty good example of why you shouldn't be out there. It's just too dangerous. There's a reason that double flags are flying all along the Alabama coast right now and the Mississippi coast as well. It is dangerous to be out there. It may not seem like it, but there are rip currents, there are water spouts, there are tornadoes being reported. It is just not a safe time to be outside, folks.
And not only you're putting yourself in danger, but if something were to happen to you, then you're putting the lives of rescue workers, emergency response in danger as well. So just stay out of the water, stay away from the area. There is a curfew in effect. Remember, if you live along the coast.
Absolutely, and we've been talking about that for a couple of days now, and we've seen this storm ramp up. Early on, it didn't look like it was going to be much. It was just going to be a tropical storm, and it has been predicted since then as high as a Category 2 storm, and things still could change. But again, the key right now, as we stay with you nonstop until Nate has passed and the threat is over, is that it looks like this storm is going to make landfall a lot earlier than originally anticipated, as early as 10 o'clock.
Yeah, so be very careful. Look, you're looking at Dauphin Island right now, and you can see the waves right there. We're expecting strong storm surge, of course. Some parts of the island they're saying is already flooded, so a lot of people have left that area.
A lot of folks were asking the mayor down there in Dauphin Island whether or not they were going to close the bridge to Dauphin Island. He said it's not up to the bridge, it's up to the causeway leading to the bridge. And now that causeway is flooded, so on and off the island of Dauphin Island is completely cut off right now.
Chief Meteorologist Chris Dunn has been keeping track of Nate since even before it formed, and it was an unnamed storm. Chris, you said that it was going to come our way.
Yeah, we had a very good indication that at least in some form this storm would develop in the Caribbean and strengthen and then move up into the Gulf of Mexico. And unfortunately, that's exactly what it's doing. We've had several storm scares so far this year, and this is finally the one that has hit its mark here in the north central Gulf of Mexico. Now, you'll notice on the satellite picture here, and it doesn't look quite as healthy as we get into the last hour or two. This loop actually goes back to 8 o'clock this morning, and you can see this big round ball of magenta colors there. If that were to sustain, that would tell us that it is a healthy hurricane and it's maintaining its strength and strengthening all the way up to the coast. As it stands right now, it looks like it's undergoing some sort of a changeover at least, and not quite as healthy as it was earlier. Now, having said that, it is still a powerful storm and it is still heading in our direction, and we've kind of been able to narrow down that cone of possibilities for where we think it's going to make landfall. And with the new advisory coming in from the National Hurricane Center, it kind of confirms that. We told you yesterday our best guess was going to be the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and it certainly looks like that is going to be the case. Sustained winds at 90, gusts to 100, but we really judge a hurricane based on the sustained winds, or a tropical storm. It's based on sustained winds, 90 miles per hour. Moving to the north-northwest at 23. Yesterday we pointed out that it was a very fast moving storm, especially for the low latitude, moving across the Caribbean at 20 to 25 miles per hour. That's pretty fast for that far south. It has still maintained that fast motion crossing the Gulf of Mexico, and that's one factor that really has prevented this from becoming an even stronger storm, and it also is going to limit our exposure to the storm and the impacts here along the coast. And it actually has sped up a little bit from where it was yesterday. So the timing, as Greg mentioned a little bit earlier, the timing, we've kind of pushed that back. So now we're looking at 10 o'clock tonight to midnight for a potential landfall. This plotted position is for 1 o'clock in the morning as an 85 mile per hour Category 1 hurricane. So we're looking at a landfall most likely somewhere along the Mississippi coast as a Category 1 hurricane. Right now it's 166 miles away from Mobile, and at a forward motion of 23, 166, yeah, that puts it right in that range of 10 o'clock tonight until midnight. Quickly losing some strength as it moves over land, North Alabama Sunday afternoon. So by this time we will see things rapidly improve weather-wise around our viewing area, but still seeing some of those bands of showers extending down into the Gulf as the thing pulls away swiftly across North Alabama and then off to the northeastern U.S. That is what we're expecting with the storm track. Again, a late night landfall tonight, not during the overnight hours. We've pushed this back between 10 p.m. and midnight on Saturday night. The most likely area is along the Mississippi coast. Significant storm surge and still significant storm impacts for Mobile and Baldwin counties. I want to stress that and say it again. Significant storm surge and significant storm impacts still expected in Mobile and Baldwin counties, because again, we're on the wrong side of the storm. We're on the east side of a landfalling hurricane, which somewhere in here is going to put us in the storm surge zone and also the tornado threat zone, as well as some of those bands of heavy rain spiraling in from the Gulf of Mexico. And stopping our pinpoint predictor here tonight at 10 o'clock, and this is a little bit behind some of the other projections, but it would put a center right down here just off the coast of Gulfport, and then moving into Mississippi, across George and Greene counties in Mississippi and up into Washington County, say by 7 a.m., 6 a.m. This is 6 a.m. on Sunday, and you can see it's really just kind of raced by Mobile County, and here's Baldwin County. Some of those lingering bands of rain, again, draping across northwest Florida, possibly into Baldwin County, but it looks like once this storm kicks off to the northeast, a lot of the active weather associated with it will also do the same. The hour-by-hour forecast wind speeds, we've seen a rapid ramp up here this afternoon, 25 mile per hour. These are the sustained winds, and this is roughly for the Mobile area, just to give you an idea of how quickly things will start to deteriorate. By 10 o'clock tonight, 44 mile per hour sustained winds. Again, this is assuming the center of the storm moves into Jackson or Harrison counties, Mississippi. The peak of the winds, midnight, 1 a.m., as the storm center passes us by, and then we will gradually see those winds taper off during the day tomorrow. To put this all into perspective, I have a graphic to understand the hurricane scale, the category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A major hurricane is 111 plus, category 3 or higher. That's basically the speed of the airplanes, big jet airplanes used to take off and land. A hurricane strength wind, high-speed rail. So we're at 90 right now, and that's about as fast as, well, you don't ever want to go that fast on the Bayway, but a lot of folks have driven a car at 90 miles an hour, and you can just imagine how fast the wind speeds are there. High-speed rail is a hurricane speed, and tropical storm speeds, roughly driving speeds, and that would be 39 miles per hour up to 74. 75 mile per hour winds, that's the threshold of a hurricane. Well, the winds we're dealing with right now, these are the short-term winds, the little bursts of wind, 24 mile per hour gust in Gulf Shores, nearly 30 miles an hour Pensacola, right at 30 at Fort Walton Beach, and it's all coming from the same direction, from an easterly direction, all involved around the center of the circulation, or the anticyclonic circulation, the counterclockwise circulation of our hurricane, which is still some 150 to 160 miles south of Mobile. Tropical storm warnings, in effect, for some of the inland areas. I know we often focus on the coastal areas with a landfalling tropical system, but the inland areas will also feel it, from Hattiesburg all the way up to Montgomery, Evergreen, Crestview, and Milton, Pensacola, Florida, under a tropical storm warning with this storm. And of course, the storm surge, the peak surge, actually we've adjusted the numbers upwards a little bit. 4 to 7 was our original estimate. Now we're looking at the potential for the worst of the worst storm surge between 5 and 9 feet, and that goes from the Louisiana, Mississippi coast all the way into Mobile Bay and across to northwest Florida, Escambia, Santa Rosa, and Okaloosa counties, all the way to the Destin area, so that would be the Walton and Okaloosa County line. Some of these areas more prone to storm surge than others. Fish River, Dog River, and the upper portions of Mobile Bay north of the causeway. I am expecting the causeway to be overrun with water this time around. Dauphin Island as well, Gulf Shores, Fort Morgan area. A lot of those areas right along the beach will likely have some water washing over the beach. A lot of sand and debris coming up on the roadway right along the beach highway, as well as Pensacola Beach and Gulf Breeze with this round of storm surge. Now, the tidal information also plays into that as well. High tide at Dauphin Island. Unfortunately, it does look like it's going to coincide with the arrival of this hurricane. Nearly midnight is the high tide at Dauphin Island, and that's about the time we're expecting this hurricane to make landfall. So you'll add the extra high tide along with that storm surge and the big push of water coming up to our stretch of the coast, and that's going to complicate things. And on top of all of this, we have bands of heavy rain, so a flash flood watch in effect for all the green shaded areas. Our pinpoint predictor, some of the rainfall totals, we're looking at 3, 4, 5 inches of rain. This takes us mainly from right now through tomorrow morning, but we'll see additional bands of showers coming through here during the day on Sunday. That's about all I have for right now as far as the latest information on the current status of the storm. We'll be checking back on what's happening with the storm and the latest on what we're seeing on the satellite and the radar, and we'll get a good position fix on what's happening with Hurricane Nate. Right now we're going to go to Jake. We're going to go to Jake in the Weather Center right now with a little bit more. Jake?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, we want to take a look at live pinpoint Doppler radar, getting some very heavy rainfall. And actually, again, we're in a coordination with with many offices, including the National Weather Service. I've got the chat room open up here, and they say that they have the bank of the Dog River. The water is now over the bank at about 2 feet. Moderate rain and about 25-mile-per-hour wind, but there is flooding now along the banks of the Dog River, and of course this will just continue as we continue to go through the evening hour. So live pinpoint Doppler radar, we've got Dauphin Island here live there on the left of me, but the live pinpoint Doppler radar also showing that some very heavy rainfall is now moving into that area. Here we've got this next convective band, very heavy rain also in Gulf Shores, moving across the bay towards the eastern shore. Fairhope, Daphne, you'll see some intense rainfall here in the next 15 to 30 minutes. So by 5 o'clock at the latest, the eastern shore is getting the intense rainfall. Theodore, Tillman's Corner also getting this heavy rainfall. And we'll have to watch this closely because remember, as these convective bands start to move inland, they bring with them a very strong south breeze, and then they run into the westerly winds coming in from the land areas, and that kind of tends to spin things up. We've had a couple of tornado warnings earlier today. We had that water spout off the coast of Gulf Shores. We had a tornado warning earlier for Jackson County. As of right now, there are no tornado warnings in effect. The Storm Prediction Center is still thinking about a tornado watch, 50-50 chance that we'll have that issued. But again, that is typical when you have landfalling systems, whether it's a tropical storm or a hurricane. Think back to Cindy in June. We had many spin-ups from the tropical storm, and the center of that storm was some 200-300 miles off to our west. So we'll have to watch that situation closely. And because we're on the eastern side of the eye, and as Chief Meteorologist Chris Dunn just said, the east is the beast, so we have an increased threat for the tornadoes, and especially as you go a little bit farther east. So all of Mobile and Baldwin County going to have that tornado threat right on through the evening, and then as we get the eye a little bit more to our north and west, that should subside as those strong south winds will dominate all of the atmosphere. So once again, that is the latest right now on the current conditions. Of course, we've got Dauphin Island. We're watching the waves really crash in. Storm surge will be a concern out there all evening long as we see that storm surge perhaps up to 5-6 feet in some spots in the bay, and again, worst case scenario 9 feet, because we're going to see the storm come in at around high tide. Originally it looked like the storm may wait until late tonight into early tomorrow morning and may happen at low tide, but it's happening at high tide and one of the highest tides with a near full moon. So a really bad timing with this storm system. So that's right now what we have in the Weather Center. We're going to bring you more up-to-date information in just a moment.
Jake, speaking about those full moon high tides last night going back over the causeway, already some minor flooding even before the storm got anywhere close to here, just because of the tide and just because of the fact that it was a full moon. Worst case scenario, originally we were thinking that this storm was going to come ashore 8-10 o'clock in the morning, which would have been low tide. Right now, completely different scenario with high tide. It's going to elevate that storm surge by several feet, and we're talking about possibly up to 9 or 10 feet in this area.
It's going to make it even that much more dangerous. You know, the mayor of Bayou La Battery down in that area has also issued voluntary evacuations now that Mobile County has some shelters open because of this storm coming through. So they're telling people, let's remind them, of course, where those shelters are in Mobile County, because we've talked about Baldwin County, Collins Road Elementary School in 8 Mile, Theodore High School in Theodore, North Mobile Middle School in Axis, and Burns Middle School in Mobile. For those people who live in the Bayou La Battery area, again, the mayor is asking for a voluntary evacuation.
Now, the video that you see behind us right now is our beach camp down there in Gulf Shores, and I checked it just a couple of minutes ago, and finally it looks like those people that were out enjoying the surf during the double red flags have left the water, so that is good news. And we've seen every once in a while, as you can see, a flash of lightning every so often, and the raindrops on the camera, these squall lines that are coming through that Jake was just talking about, these bands, they whip up in a hurry, bring a lot of rain in a hurry, and a lot of wind as well. They're really odd because they come through and then it stops and then they come back through. You just got to keep it here to know when those next bands are coming through. The band right now stretches all the way from, looks like, Gulf Shores all the way through the lower part of Mobile County. So this is that next band we're talking about.
Okay, we're going to switch here to Gulfport, Mississippi for a little bit from out of Orange Beach in the Gulf Shores area, and it looks, you can see, looks like a boat is sinking there in the area. I know that a lot of boaters were asked to please remove their vessels from out of the water or either secure them to a safer place, and we're seeing right now what's happening to that boat that was left there. This again is in Gulfport, Mississippi.
Well, unfortunately, it looks like it was moored off the bow into the rocks. It may have gotten loose, and it may have been an anchor situation that it got loose from its mooring. And whenever you are backed into the waves like that with a boat, that's exactly what happens. That looked like, as an old sailor, it looked like a Catalina 22, about a 22-foot sailboat, has a cabin on board. Hopefully there's nobody on board that boat. They would not be very smart if they stayed on that boat. But that sailboat was probably moored out, and the mooring came loose, crashed onto those rocks with the aft of that boat towards the waves. And it doesn't take long for those waves to crash over the back of that boat and sink it. And that's exactly what we saw happen right there.
Now, you mentioned before you are a boater yourself. You were just saying this. I'm not very familiar with boating. Just lived on the area. I love to see them. So let's talk a little bit about that, since you are a little expert on that. Because we were telling people,
Yeah.
you know, hey, hunker down those boats. Where's the best